Hi, Voss Graham here. I just wanted to share with you a little story about a question that came up last week with a client of mine, and he was asking me about why I spend so much time working with leaders in organizations, both small and large, and helping them in so many different ways. And it was uh, it was insightful thinking about his question as I began to easily recognize the source of, of my change in operations, so to speak, where I left the world of numbers and systems and that sort of thing to focus more on leadership. And the event that caused that was a situation where I was working with two companies during my turnaround days. You know, I remember I was a banker for 13 years, and my last few years was in working out bad loans for the bank, and I enjoyed that. It was problem solving, which is my forte, and I was enjoying the solving the problems, and they were every day. Trust me, that's my hair turned gray, but it didn't surrender, so that was pretty cool. Uh, but anyway, I was during the turnaround days. I ran into two companies that were basically cookie cuttered out. I mean, they had the same type of market, the same type of situation. They were both financially dysfunctional, and they were both in need of revitalization. So back at that moment in time, I was more focused on numbers and setting up systems and making everything work and invigorating and building up the group to make things happen. But one of the interesting things about this particular scenario is that one company survived and the other one stutter stepped for a while and then continued its free fall. And it, let me tell you, I lost sleep worrying about what the heck happened. Why did one company make it and the other one didn't? I mean, it was one of those situations where you just can't really figure out what's going on from a numbers crunching and plan perspective. Then one day, like a blinding light of the simple and obvious, I it dawned on me that it wasn't a situation of numbers and structure and systems and that sort of thing. It was an issue of uh, leadership. The leadership of the organizations were entirely different. At that point in time, I began to spend a lot more time researching and looking at the power of the leaders for the companies that I was working with. One of the things that came into play was the fact that one leader, we'll call him Mr. X, uh, he was into blame. He was big in the blame game. He blamed his employees. He blamed his overly demanding customers. He blamed the economy. He blamed the government, the taxation laws, everything he could think of other than himself. He was pointing a finger at, and it was so obvious. You know, when you point a finger, you've got three fingers coming back at you. So it's that's one of those things you have to think about. But what was interesting is that he didn't want to take responsibility. And one of the most classic statements that he made that gave me an idea of what kind of person I was truly working with, other than all the blame that he was assigning, was the fact that he really bragged about not having cracked the book on business in over 20 years since he graduated from school. And I thought that was interesting because I am a product of continuous improvement. I am constantly learning. I mean, I go to seminars, I go to workshops, I read books, I watch webinars almost weekly to improve my knowledge and, more importantly, to stay on the cutting edge of this rapidly changing world that we are in. But the other thing, the other company, back to my story, the other company was one that survived. And the leader of that company took a totally different approach. It's what I call a high character approach. He says, Voss, what has happened on my watch. I've got to take responsibility. What is it going to take to get my company back on track? Now you got to remember, this is an individual who, actually both individuals, had all of their financial wealth tied up in their companies. So the strength or the viability of the companies were critical to their long-term success, and they really needed to get the companies back on track. One succeeded, one didn't, and it was all about leadership. The gentleman who came to me and made the statement, "It happened on my watch," he was into the plan. He was working the plan. He asked for advice. He took counsel and guidance in what steps to take. And most importantly, he took care of his employees. He made a strong point of taking care of them and making sure that they were happy. And they in turn took care of the customers, which in turn took care of the business. So we went from a surviving mode to a thriving mode within a very short period of time, based on the skill of the leader in charge. And that's what I want to tease you with, or to get you to think about. The insights from this is, what are you doing to help your company from a leadership perspective? What visions are you adding to it? How are you positioning yourself as far as working with your employees, making sure that they understand that they are a vital link to the success of the organization? Give them credit for what they do and when they do it. It is extremely important that they get involved and make your success a reality. The other point that I want to make is, what are you doing for continuous improvement? Not only for yourself, but for your team. If you're not supplying your team with opportunities to learn and grow, well, they're still using old techniques, old philosophies, old mindsets, and old frames of reference, which may be totally out of date, depending on how long you've been around. And that's a critical point. You've got to stay ahead of the curve, and you can only do that through continuous improvement and continuous learning. So the question you need to ask is, do you have a coach? Do you have coaches for your key executives? Do you offer training? Are you paying attention to the things that need to be paid attention to relative to the traits of high performers? Are you developing a high-performing culture? These are the things that the great leaders do. They pay attention to these things. They don't let them just occur or happen. They do things in their organization to ensure that the continuous learning is a given, that you will have continuous learning. You will do the things. You have coaches, you have advisors, you have strategies, you have sessions where you just discuss the strategies. These are the things that it takes to turn companies from good into great, as Jim Collins has often stated in his book. Good to great can happen with any company, small or large. It doesn't matter, but it is something that's led from the top. Anyway, that's my sermonette for the day on my deck here at my home on a weekend, and just wanted to share that thought with you, as it was prevalent in my mind, and I wanted to share with everyone this amazing story of how you can determine who's successful and who's not with their organizations. And with that, I want to thank you. You have a great week and an even better year.